Welcome to Ear Biscuits, I'm Rhett.
And I'm Link. This week at the round table of dim lighting, man, we are going to tackle a deep, dark issue. We're gonna seek to answer the question, or at least explore it in detail with a scope-like device of conversation. That question is, are farts actually funny?
Are they actually funny?
I want this.
I'm
to
gonna
be
start echoing. I think we should do that because I've heard that in order for
repetition.
people to remember things, you have to say it multiple times.
Well, I
So
don't
from
think-
now on,
I don't think anybody needs to remember that. Are farts actually
are
funny?
farts actually funny?
And I don't want to just be a bunch of like two school kids.
Yeah, we're not a bunch.
being idiots. I want to be sophisticated about that.
Well, I've got historical data. I've got information about the first joke ever recorded. I've got information about the historical attitudes towards farts in media. I'm gonna blow your farting mind.
and I have a lot of experience.
With farting? Yeah. You know the average person farts 14 times a day, and everyone will deny that it is that many.
You said what? 10 to 20?
14, well 10 to 20 is.
I read 10 to 20.
Yeah, 14 is, is an average. I think I probably farted 14 times just today when we were talking a little bit about farts earlier.
Oh, well, a wise man once said, laughter is like farting from your mouth.
Yeah, that was you, Link, you're a wise man.
A wise man once quoted himself in the third person saying something about farts.
Did you notice that as we were talking about this and kind of and looking at the research that we were standing in our office,
Yes.
and there was multiple audible farts
Coming from you.
Yeah, but it was
None from me.
none from you today maybe, but I was just getting into the spirit of this whole thing, But then I started realizing that it's typical that that's how it is in our office when no one else is in our office. Is that it's an open farting policy.
I want to get back to this.
Okay.
So I don't want to get into it right now because I'm glad that you admitted that you have an issue.
An issue?
I wanted to explore it. You don't think it's an issue.
I had the vegan
So you think it's
sunset
funny.
bowl from Grain Lab or whatever it was.
When
There
the
was
sun
there was
sets, the
quinoa and
tides
beans,
rise.
broccoli.
All right, so we're gonna get into farting, but it's gonna be sophisticated, it's gonna be adult, and it's gonna be,
You just made the word adult sound
it's gonna be life-changing.
that it was, I don't know what it was. It just made me think more about farts. Okay, but I have to say that I'm gonna have trouble, I'm having trouble I'm doing the Batman thing that I have to do sometimes.
The Batman swivel where the shoulders turn with the nose?
Yeah, because I, earlier today, when I was at the gym getting my pump on,
It's not a thing.
I
What
hurt
you just
my,
said is not how it's said.
I hurt my upper back. Now, as you know,
Upper back.
I've got lower back issues that I've dealt with on and off, and I have a recurring upper back. Like everybody, I assume, like I know you got like your shoulder thing, and you kind of know when it's about to happen, and you know when it's happened, and it's very specific, and it's in a certain place, and the pain radiates in exactly the same way every time.
Well, just as a side note for those of you who don't know, my shoulder
There's an ant in my cup.
will pop out of socket and then pop right back in. It's like the ligaments got. Did you get it?
Yeah.
There it is. There. All right, he's flinging it on the floor, and now he's drinking a big gulp of the drink.
Without the ant. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, residue. Ever since attempting to bench press as a middle schooler, my right shoulder would just pop out and pop back in. But anyway,
Very
so
disconcerting.
And now I have issues from how I slept on it.
But I've
After that.
actually, in trying to take care of my body and watch what I'm eating and doing the Pilates, and now I'm going to this. I've been going to the gym and meeting with this personal trainer who's like focusing on like my back health and posture and things.
Wealth of knowledge, those personal trainers.
I haven't had the upper back issue in quite some time. It's something that would happen even in college, I remember the first time it really happened and I thought that I was down for the count was when we were watching UFC. We got into watching UFC in college and we would watch it and then we would wrestle. And other guys in the dorm room would come in and there would be like, other people would sometimes join in on it. It was very strange now that I think about it. But I was trying to guillotine you. Like I was
like a headlock?
Almost like a suplex kind of thing, but we never really did any real moves. It was just like kind of like grappling, you know, like sparring. But in pulling up, I felt this little snap right in between my shoulder blades, just to the right of my spine. And that was when I thought that I wasn't gonna be able to make it to class the next day.
Oh.
Because it hurt so bad. It's not nearly that bad, but I was not doing a pull-up. I was doing something short of a pull-up.
So you're saying that's when your upper back injury originated?
I've had the upper and the lower back since like high school, college.
Oh, I didn't know you had an upper back thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's this sharp pain. Anyway, and then when I get it, turning both ways causes this really sharp pain in the middle, which is much better because I've been like, you see me massaging myself all day? You didn't offer to help, by the way.
Somebody's got to do it.
I've been sitting here massaging myself. But I was doing a pull-up, but not a pull-up. It's just, the exercise was just jump up and hold yourself up like you're doing a pull-up.
Mm-hmm.
And hold it for 5 seconds and let yourself down gently. And then like
a reverse chin up.
Chin
down.
The third one, felt the snap. And I was like, oh, no.
Thanos.
And then I'm like an old man at that point, and I'm like, I don't know what else I can do.
Oh, was the trainer there?
Yeah. And then I'm like, also my knee's kind of hurting and my lower back was already hurting from earlier. And I was just like, I think I should just quit today.
And did you?
Well, she ended up like giving me some modified things just to fill the time, and
she had to make that money.
I ended up being.
She's like, I know you're decrepit and you're falling apart here, but I gotta get that money.
Ultimately what I'm saying is if you see me touching myself during this podcast, it's just because I'm trying to comfort my own spine and I'm gonna be fine, don't worry about me. Your sympathy is appreciated. But when I turn to you like this, I might use the swivel in the chair and it's just because this hurts more than normal.
I don't mean to look at you with a blank, unempathetic stare, but that's I just can't conjure up anything else right now. I think somehow this is, you deserved this, and
do you know,
I didn't want to say that out loud.
But you know what would be a great superpower? A great superpower would be able to snap your fingers and make someone else feel exactly what you're feeling.
Oh.
And so I could be like, and then you'd be like, and that's, I'm gonna take it back now.
Well, speaking of Thanos,
perfect empathy. We'd be like a USB port.
There is like the empath superhero in Guardians, but she can feel your pain. She can't make you feel her pain. That's pretty self-centered.
You keep saying Thanos.
I said Thanos earlier, and then I said speaking of Thanos later.
Oh.
I'm talking in the Marvel universe.
What is that superhero's name?
She's the one with the antenna and the big eyes.
Oh, and the weird bald head thing? Oh no, yes, oh.
Yeah.
Part of the crew, she's like pink-ish, yeah.
She was on Thanos' head, man.
Yeah.
You remember Thanos? I spoke of him.
You keep speaking of Thanos.
The snap, you said the snap earlier.
I get it.
I am really sore myself.
Oh, really?
But I have not sustained an injury because in my gym experience yesterday morning, I had to do some pull-ups.
Oh, real pull-ups.
Oh my gosh. Man, if you haven't done pull-ups, if you want to get sore, do a bunch of pull-ups having not done pull-ups for like a couple of years. And it'll just ransack you, man. Like everything underneath my armpits is just like a tender place of emotion. It's like just poke anywhere and I'm liable just to start crying, man. But something feels good about it. Like you were talking about, last week you were talking about, I can't walk because they had me doing one-legged squats.
Yeah, it was awful. I had just recovered. That's the thing.
Did you like it? Did you like, was there an aspect of liking the soreness? Like I actually feel like I have some muscles because I'm sore.
I like soreness in general, but it was It was extreme. It was like I couldn't go upstairs. It was that bad. And it was that bad for like, I mean, I did go upstairs, but I had to really use the arm rails. It was like 3 or 4 days, and I'd finally gotten over it, and then I freaking injured myself.
You gotta watch it, man.
You gotta be more careful.
Do you let any farts out? Like when you're straining so much to like do a pull up or do some of that Pilates that you do, I mean, to get back to the farts, to just start to whet our appetite for the.
Oh, please don't use farts and then wet right after it.
There was an H in there. I think it's wet.
No, I actually I think about it.
You don't wet an appetite. You wet it.
I actually think about it quite often.
You're holding them in.
Oh yeah, in the morning time. That's like prime time, man. That's like deflation time. That's like you're like equalizing like a scuba diver for the first like 2 or 3 hours that you're awake. At least if you're me, maybe it's just because I'm 6'7".
Do you eat something before you go into the gym? Because I think I actually don't have a fart problem usually. I have a stink problem, like if I eat garlic the night before.
You mean not from the farts,
I will
but from
stink
the body.
from my whole body. But I don't have a fart problem.
No,
usually.
I mean it's not. I mean I had oatmeal today before I went in. But I mean definitely there were a few times when I was like, if I was in here alone, I'd let it go right now. But I'm not going to. Not gonna put. However, during the end of the workout, what happens in my gym is after you work out, your trainer stretches you, makes you feel like a professional athlete.
Oh.
And they line you up, there's like 4 stretching tables, and usually they're pretty full, weekday morning around 7 a.m. or whatever. And so
on a table, not even on the floor.
You're on this like table.
Like a physical therapy table.
Yeah, and they're stretching you. And
oh wow.
They
don't do that at my gym.
Someone next to me, like the people, the trainer and the patient, what do you call them, client, over here to the right of me, one of them farted. And it came over towards us.
Was it audible?
No, it went in my right nostril, so I was able to like echolocate the fart, so I knew where it came from.
Right.
And I knew that it wasn't my trainer and it wasn't me, but I was like, she might think that it's me, because it definitely smelled like a dude's fart, because there's just a difference. And
well, hold on now. There's just a difference.
Well, it's like
that's so sexist, man.
Well, ultimately,
women's farts stink, man.
No, what I'm saying is, if there was a bear that got into my house and there was a deer that got into my house, I kind of feel like ultimately I'd be able to tell you if it was a bear or a deer. And I feel like men have like bear farts sometimes. Not all men, but some men. So and then I was like, should I say something? Like, it wasn't me. No, you can't do that. So I just began to stretch a little more in an effort to waft it away. I
definitely would, I don't know, I would have said something. But now that I'm saying that, I'm like, I have been hit with the opportunity to like explain that it wasn't me, but then I'm also worried that it's them and I'm putting them on the spot. So then it's like, well then, I'm putting them on the spot to lie if it was them, and then if they don't lie, it's extremely embarrassing. So the reason why I don't do it is for that reason, to not make the other person feel like I'm backing them into a corner.
Don't even acknowledge it.
But if you had echolocated the thing, then I think you should have let that rip. Hey, it wasn't me.
Yeah, it was that guy over there. It was one of them, 2 feet away from us. Okay.
You should have done that, man.
So we've already gotten into farts a little bit here, and I think that—
Was there any comedy in that?
I think that there was I think me saying the term echolocate a fart probably made some people laugh. That wasn't my intention necessarily, but it just the way it came out, just like a little—
But that's for them to say.
Yeah, and—
not you.
But was it funny? I don't know. You be the judge.
I was asking, was it funny for you to experience it? Not, did you just say something funny?
No, but our fart's funny.
Okay.
Our fart's actually funny?
That's fair. So us talking about that, oh yeah, I think we talked about it for comedic effect.
And I think
we were fishing for some comedy.
And I do think we're gonna be talking a lot about—
I don't know if we echolocated it.
Farting specifically being incorporated into purposeful comedy.
Oh.
I think is a big part of this discussion. I don't think it's just like, is it funny when someone farts and why is it funny? We'll get into that, but is it funny to then make fart jokes? Is it funny to have a fart joke in your pants ready to flip it out and impress somebody?
Well, let's get into that, but first, let's take a moment to draw your attention to this ear biscuit jar.
I got one too, look at that.
You need to get one of these at mythical.store because once you get it, you can drink out of it, just like we're doing right now.
Even if there's an ant in it.
Feel like us by drinking out of an ear biscuit jar. When you drink out of something and it has, and you have a personal connection to it that would be to us, it makes whatever you taste better.
I don't believe that we can say this according to like the FDA.
It makes what you
FCC.
drink out of it psychologically taste better because you're gonna remember what I'm saying to you right now. And you're gonna open your cupboard and you're gonna see this ear biscuit jar up there and you have other options of what to drink out of and you're gonna choose it because it connects you to us.
FTC actually.
And to this moment.
Federal Trade Commission. I think I need to legally say.
And it's psychologically gonna taste better because you're tasting not only the taste of the thing you're tasting, but you're also tasting the experience of an ear biscuit.
These claims have not been proven in a lab and this is just what we put on the label to make you feel better about drinking out of the cup.
I'll tell you something that was 100% true. We have less than 1,000 of these.
Hey, that is true.
And then once they're gone, we're not making any more. So be a part of history. If you want this to sit in your cupboard.
Oh gosh, how did you do that?
This is it. I'm spilling it everywhere.
It was magic.
Cupboard.
Don't try it again. Okay, mythical.store. All right, I thought that we could, so we've got a few things, right? We've got personal farting stories, but I don't even feel like we should get into those because we don't even know if they're funny yet because we haven't even explored if it's okay for farting to be funny, for fart jokes to be funny. Which is kind of what we're getting into. So there's the stories, there's also our personal philosophy with like our comedy and how we, how do we view farts in our comedy repertoire, but then also kind of like the history of farting in comedy and people's viewpoint on it. What do you think makes the most sense in terms of getting into first?
Let's set the stage with some cultural analysis of farts through the strata of comedy.
Okay, good idea. Now, I got some of this from. Do we post like sources anywhere? We don't do that. Do we? I mean,
you can tweet an article if you'd like.
Okay.
Hashtag ear biscuits.
I'll do that when this comes out. I'll talk about it. But right now, have this article from the Pacific Standard, which talks about a few of these things, and then there's another article that I'm not remembering at the moment. But you can get this information in multiple places. First of all, one of the things I found really interesting is that Jimmy Pardo. You remember Jimmy Pardo, we were on his podcast?
Yeah, Never Not Funny.
And then we did his
fundraiser,
charity thing.
His marathon fundraiser.
In this article in the Pacific Standard by a guy named Rick Paulus, he was talking about how some comedians really, really hate fart jokes, and Jimmy Pardo was quoted as saying, "I don't think there is a topic I hate more, and you can quote me." He's like really, really adamantly against fart jokes.
Really?
And you know who's also just against bathroom humor in general is Jimmy Fallon, another Jimmy. Maybe if you're Jimmy, well, there's a new theory.
You don't like bathroom humor.
But my dad's name is Jimmy and he'll fart up a storm.
But does he make jokes about it or does he do it for comedic effect?
Both, so it doesn't hold true, bad theory. But Jimmy Pardo and Jimmy Fallon, neither of them are into to fart humor. But interestingly, the first joke ever recorded in Sumeria, 1900 BC, was, quote, "Something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap." It seems it gets lost in translation a little bit.
That was the entire joke?
Yeah, that was it. "Something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap."
This is ringing a bell. I think you've told me about this, or this has come up before. I've heard this.
Yeah. I don't exactly understand what the joke is there.
We didn't figure it out then, and I don't think we're gonna figure it out now.
I can say that my wife didn't necessarily fart on my lap, but she did fart on a dude's lap in high school, and she tells that story, and it's a funny one.
Well,
yeah.
It's a funny one?
Yeah, well, I mean.
How did that happen?
I just told you.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You said there was a story.
She has
Tell me the story.
All I know is that she sat on a dude's lap and shortly thereafter she farted and everyone started laughing, and it's a story that is told time immemorial. And apparently it was funny in Sumeria. But I think that the bottom line with that is as far back as we can go to people recording a joke, it was a fart joke. So this is something this isn't a new thing. I don't think anybody thought that, but it's interesting. Also, did you know that Shakespeare had diverticulitis? He was not above a fart joke. There were multiple ones to choose from. They were a little bit subtle, almost like a silent fart.
Well, that's because we don't understand Shakespeare.
But in Othello,
that's a board game, right?
The clown says, "Are these, pray you, wind instruments?" And the first musician says, "Aye, marry they are, sir." Clown says, "Oh, thereby hangs a tale." First musician says, "Whereby hangs a tale, sir?" And the clown says, "Marry, sir, by many a wind instrument that I know." He's talking about the anus.
Butthole.
Yeah, and how it's like a wind instrument.
The fart took us.
And this is just, again, one of many examples that you can find of bathroom humor. They might even go as far as to call it scatological. Can you say that word for me?
Eschatological.
Nope. It's scatological. Scatological? Yep.
Like ology of the scat.
Yeah, of the scat. And Shakespeare had made a lot of these. And then we actually talked about this guy on the show on GMM before. This French baker who was known as Le Pétomain, or something like that, is a guy who his whole act, he was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. His whole act was farting.
Yes.
Through a cone. He was a baker.
Through like a megaphone?
And at first he had people who would come to his bakery and hear him fart impressions of musical instruments.
What?
Which is an interesting thing to happen in a bakery. Really, don't really want to carb load after that. But then he took his act on the road and became this national treasure of France that people like Sigmund Freud would actually pay to see while traveling Europe.
But this wasn't comedy. This was an exhibition.
It was comedy.
Oh, it was?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It wasn't just like,
he would do impersonations of people, of animals, of musical instruments. He would blow out a candle from across the stage.
Yeah, but at a certain point you're no longer laughing and you're just clapping. You're in awe. It's a trick. It's an exhibition of talent.
No doubt there are elements of that, without a doubt, but I definitely think that people thought it was funny. A French baker farting? It was at least lighthearted.
I think it was more of it.
But then, for most of the 20th century, in media, farts were off limits. It was kind of this like last taboo of something that you couldn't talk about and you couldn't do in movies, like the early film movement. No farts, no bathroom humor really. Until
no scenes in a bathroom, nobody sitting on a toilet.
Well,
type of scene probably.
I just know that directly addressing the fart or somebody farting was not something that happened until 1974. Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles, which was a sort of revolutionary comedy film in a bunch of different ways.
They had the first fart in a film?
Well, multiple sources that I looked at said that this was sort of breaking the seal, so to speak, on incorporating farts unashamedly into media, into comedy.
Well, incorporating is an understatement. That verb undersells how many farts they put into that farting scene.
Yeah, we watched it a second ago, and the cowboys are around the fire eating beans.
Oh yeah.
And it's a slow zoom out, and like there's burping as well. There's a burp, and then there's a fart, and then there's a bunch of farting.
Yeah.
And then the guy comes out of the tent and. You probably won't find it funny just because it hasn't translated very well, at least that particular scene. But it was revolutionary in the sense that it was like Mel Brooks was taking a chance and saying, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna have all these actors fart
And you know what it makes me think of, just to flash forward in time a little bit, in terms of great points of flatulence in cinema. I think about that freaking Eddie Murphy movie where he plays all the different characters at the dinner table.
Nutty Professor.
Nutty Professor, and is it his mom or his dad, or does the whole family start farting?
There's a dinner scene where I actually have Nutty Professor written down because I wanted to use it as an example later
Yes, I just thought about it.
Stage and point. Who there called my name?
Okay, I just remember dying. That was so funny, man, because one fart will catch you off guard. I mean, and that checks the box of a certain type of comedy, which is surprise. You take somebody by surprise, you add a little embarrassment into the mix, especially, and then all of a sudden you're laughing. But then I remember with that scene, it just kept happening. They just kept farting. And I just remember belly laughing, like I couldn't stop. It was so funny.
The first time.
Of course.
Watching it again, would you laugh in that way? Probably not, right? I don't know if I would crack a smile if I watched The Nutty Professor right now.
I mean, speaking of bathroom humor, it's like when I rewatched A League of Their Own with the kids a few months back, and I remember the Tom Hanks scene where he starts peeing in the women's locker room, and the whole like team, he's been on like a drunken binge. And he pees and it just keeps going and going and going. And I remember in the theater, like there was like rolling laughter. This is much.
It hits you again.
I actually talk about this.
Second wave.
I've talked about this scene multiple times in my life because it was very formative to me as a aspirational peer.
Right, because you haven't been at a pee very long.
And it stopped and then it started again. But then when I rewatched it with them, because I knew that it was going to end at some point, I didn't have just the big question mark of, I can't believe this is still going, when is it gonna end? Same thing with all the farts and Nutty Professor. Once you know it's just a bunch of farts, you kind of roll your eyes.
Well, and you kind of got at this a little bit, to why farts are funny. And there's a number of theories about, first of all, like theories of humor and theories of comedy are super complex and there's lots of disagreement. And, but I do think that farts have two things. Number one, they're relatable. So there's a relatability to farts that's across all cultures, all times, because everyone's got to get rid of the gas in their butt at some point.
It's kind of, it's like the gross version of saying everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time.
Right, but it's even more
everybody
relatable
releases
than
air pockets.
Because not everybody
from
wears
their
pants.
Anus.
There are cultures that don't wear pants, but
True.
everyone has a butthole.
It's better than that.
And gas comes out of it. So
your butthole is like the pants of the globe.
The galaxy?
The galaxy.
Pants of the galaxy. But in the second thing besides relatability is what you called surprise, which when discussed in theories of humor is called pattern disruption. And that's what makes, a fart has those two things in full supply, right? Not just the gas, but it's got the relatability, then it's got the pattern disruption that causes this sense of surprise, which elicits laughter. And we don't know exactly, but it's just, that's why when you put a fart into church, that'll go over like a fart in church, the old euphemism goes. When you put a fart into something that humans have dressed it up to be formal and to have a certain level of expectations, that we're not all thinking about each other's buttholes at the time. Like we're doing the least think about each other's buttholes thing that we can come up with, like be in church.
Yeah.
Or we're at a newscast or a formal dinner or something like that. And then all of a sudden, somebody farts. There's no question as to what it is. You don't have to speak any particular language to know that was a fart. That came from that dude's butt. And that surprised us and disrupted this pattern that we've got going on right here, and everyone begins to laugh. And that's why it's universally funny. So I think the first part of the question is, are they actually funny? Well, yeah, they're funny.
I think it depends because, well, I'm curious if our upbringing and how we interacted with farts over the course of our lives has primed us to find farts funny, because I don't think it's any secret that we find farts funny, right? But not in every instance, but
not all farts.
We have a general predisposition to find farts funny. And I think at least for me, it has to do with my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm curious about yours, but for me, both of my granddads would just, when I go visit my grandparents, they would just do these reverberatory farts that we would just all get a kick out of it. Like my mom's dad and my dad's dad, they would just rip them and everyone would immediately laugh. And they were so expressive. I mean, when you get a laugh in that way, you start to know how to harness that pocket of air for maximum of effectiveness.
It becomes a tool.
But my Nana, she'd also rip them.
Mm-hmm.
But now she's at a point, and I've you fast forward to this point in her life, great grandmother, just walking around doing whatever she wants, farting, just doing the walking farts, every step. Burp, burp,
Yeah.
burp, burp, burp,
God
burp.
bless her. Let her do what she wants.
It's not even for comedic effect anymore, but we laugh at her, we kind of snicker because it's happening. And sometimes she'll like cut her eyes. But I mean, it just comes from a long line of fart. A fart is followed by a laugh in the Neal household. But now in my house, I operate that way. I fart, I expect to get a laugh. But you know what, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids will say, well, it's gross. It's gross. So I think that, I don't know, they just haven't been around enough people laughing at it. And they've only experienced the negative parts, which are the smell part.
Well,
that is an aspect.
I have a theory. I for why your kids don't find it funny, but I don't want to get there yet.
Okay.
And I kind of give you my background is very similar. I mean, I didn't have I wasn't close to my grandparents didn't live in the same town, and so honestly, like when I think about like I know that my it's Mom and Elle's husband, but it's my step granddad we call Pop. He definitely farted. I remember him sitting in like a recliner and farting, but it was just like a handful of visits, and it was funny. Mm-hmm. There was absolutely no shame associated with flatulence.
Right.
In the families that, in my immediate family and also the families that we were related to. And which is usually you just say extended relatives. I just said families I was related to.
But will your parents, did you grow up with your parents farting?
Yeah. Well,
like both of them?
Both of them, yes. Now, my dad would do it for comedic, for comedy's sake.
Comedic punctuation.
And there might be like, well, you know what I think about that? Well-placed fart. With my mom, I think it might have been like, it wasn't always on purpose, but when it was immediately acknowledged and diffused with a laugh. So we weren't one of those families that was ashamed of farts, unless it felt like more than a fart happened.
There was certainly a glass ceiling.
If a shart happens,
oh gosh.
At that point there's some shame involved, and it's still very funny.
Yeah.
But it's a different kind of laugh.
I think there was a glass ceiling for my mom. It's the men in my life, it seems like they would like hold them for the perfect moment and just like let them rip, just force it out in the most reverberatory way. But I don't think the women were expected to do that, which is a shame.
Right, there's a double standard.
So for them, you'd laugh at them because something slipped out. But the men, it was like, good Lord, what have you done? I mean, we were staying, a few Christmases ago, we spent the night at my dad's house, and all the kids slept in the sunroom, which is like at the back door. And Lincoln tells the story of my dad, who he calls granddaddy, coming in and saying, taking his dog Gypsy out. And he said, Gypsy? And that made Lincoln stir a little bit. And then my dad, I don't know how you could have this much gas inside of your belly, and it can't be healthy. And he let out this fart that was like a huge deposit. I mean, it could have filled up the whole sunroom. It was like,
And it started again.
And then it woke up Lincoln. It woke him up. It was like an earthquake was happening. And and my dad said, Gypsy! And then he let out the fart and then he was like, good Lord. and then he just walked out the door.
Yeah, you gotta walk out after that.
Good God almighty.
You don't wanna sit around and discuss it.
And it scarred Lincoln. It scarred
him?
It scarred him. I mean, it didn't literally leave a scar on him. He wasn't that close to it. But the only farts that my family likes that I do are the ones I do in my mouth. They'll ask me,
do that farting with your mouth, Daddy.
Do that fart with your mouth, because I got one.
Gather around, kids.
It's not like a.
It's like the Waltons.
It's like.
Good night, Daddy.
That's it. That's it. They love it when I do this fart that comes out of like the lower right part of my mouth.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
They love that.
Yeah.
But when I really fart from my anus, they don't like that.
Oh, where's it from?
And I think that's why that's my theory. I'm just gonna skip to my theory. You can wait for your. I just think they know that they smell something. I mean, this is gross. I'm sorry, but I think this is they just think there was air in your anus and now it's in my nose.
Yeah.
I don't care how funny it sounded. That is gross.
Well,
and you know what? It is.
Okay.
And I think comic relief is the only way to get over that reality.
Well, I think
that's my argument for it being funny.
I think there are two reasons that your kids don't find it funny. Well, and this goes back to the theory of humor, right? So one aspect of the theory of humor or someone's theory of humor is that things that are funny involve something going wrong but no one getting hurt. Mm-hmm. Right? So somebody falling down the stairs.
Sometimes it hurts.
Somebody falling down the stairs and dying is not funny, but somebody falling down the stairs and not dying or not getting hurt is funny.
Yeah.
It's just the outcome. So when your flatulence is stanky and is experienced by your kids in a negative way, they're getting hurt. Right, so it's like it may start as funny, but then when it's like, oh, that actually stunk, this is unpleasant, it's no longer funny. But I actually think an even bigger part of it, and this is why I wanted to use the Nutty Professor, because I remember laughing at that, but I would not laugh at it now, is I think that because a key to a fart being funny is this pattern disruption, but when the fart becomes the pattern, it's no longer funny. So if you go to the fart too often, as I do believe Eddie Murphy does too much in The Nutty Professor.
In that one scene?
And potentially you may do too much as the farting dad in your house, you're wearing out the fart's welcome by going to it so often. And now it's no longer disrupting a pattern, but the pattern has become dad farts for attention.
Yeah.
And if you're farting, if you're farting on a regular basis, so it's in other words, like if you had a friend and it was like the first time you ever met this guy, you walked into the room and he farted, you would laugh and you would tell the story. But if every time you walked into the room he farted and that was his thing, you're like, I don't want to go into the room anymore. It's unpleasant. It's also not funny because I'm expecting it. And an expected fart isn't funny.
I also think that it's really hard in a cinematic setting to make a fart funny because everything's calculated. So if you're deciding to go with the fart joke in that moment, it better be really good and surprising and original in some way. It just can't be like adding a fart sound effect when Jar Jar Binks runs off scene, which I do have a memory of that being a part of the Star Wars movie. That Jar Jar Binks, they put a fart sound in at one point.
Is this true?
I believe it.
There's a fart noise?
Yes, I'm pretty certain of it. And that's just, okay, that's just cheap. It's like, okay, won't the kids find it funny when this character farts, you know? And
also, who's the most likely character to fart? Jar Jar Binks. Don't give him the fart. Give the fart to the most unexpected character and maybe you're getting somewhere.
Darth Maul.
Yeah, if Darth Maul farts, I'm laughing at that all day. But Star Wars isn't a comedy, shouldn't have ever tried to be one, and that's why that dude's life was like ruined. Like you're the one
fart sound.
You told me about the Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, the guy played Jar Jar Binks. I mean,
he like had
a while back
a horrible life.
Yeah, he came forward saying it screwed up his screwed up his life.
So it is a thing, Jar Jar Binks
just Google Jar Jar Binks fart. You'll get it on YouTube.
All you want.
But
we have
in real life, farts can be hilarious. Like, I mean, if I search TV fart bloopers, I can watch videos of newscasters or people in like a talk show setting accidentally farting. And
it's hilarious.
I looked at those before I came in here and I thought to myself, as long as I'm seeing a fresh clip I've never seen, the laughs are not gonna stop because you get the facial expression and the beautiful thing is you don't smell it. You don't smell it, so.
Nobody gets hurt.
Nobody gets hurt when it's on the other side of a screen. Matter of fact, speaking of somebody getting hurt, it can get you fired, but it can make a career. I'm sure many Ear Biscuiteers have heard about Paul Flart, who has an Instagram account. He's a security guard at a hospital, and the story is he would fart when no one was around at like the entrance to the hospital, and he realized how good the acoustics were, and he started turning on the shot's the exact time, so it's almost like a webcam shot. I don't know if he's doing it with his phone, but it's his face and the top of his uniform, and you can see like the hospital sign behind him. Not all of it, just a little bit of it. It's mostly his face. And he just kind of.
You're like in an office or something.
He blinks. No, he was in the reception area.
Okay, reception.
And each Instagram video is just one fart. But I watched all of them. And you saw me over there cackling.
Yeah,
and
when I looked over your shoulder, it was definitely very, very funny.
Because it's just his face, like blinking and like twitching, and then his reaction to his own fart. And then whatever caption he might put on it, like ferocious, felt that one in my chest. Anyways, he starts getting big on the internet. People put compilations on YouTube and whatnot. He's got 74,000 followers on Instagram as of this recording, but that was plenty to get him fired.
Oh, wow.
Which he then live streamed as it was happening.
Getting fired?
Getting kicked out of the hospital, yeah. So now he's trying to make a living.
As a farter?
As a farter. He's got a Patreon. You give him $5 and I got fired. You're really paying me to fart. Thank you. That's what it says, $5 a month. Or you can give him $1
It seems like he could still get a job somewhere, a place, like a glue factory. We actually knew a guy.
Oh, because of the stink.
Who worked at a glue factory, which just smells absolutely horrible because of the things that go into glue. And he said that the best thing about it was if you had one that you knew wasn't gonna make any noise, you were in a boardroom and people were just constantly letting them fly because it was masked by this. I think that he needs to be a security guard at a glue factory, and then it's the best of both worlds and everybody's happy.
I mean, if you're in a plane and all of a sudden someone like sawed a log, that sounds like a snore, but
yeah.
I was trying to come up with a fart euphemism. I don't find that funny because of the pain thing. You're exactly right about that.
Because we're trapped with you in that place. But a video of you not on that plane watching other people on that plane, you would laugh at it, even if you felt bad for the people.
Remember Tommy G? The story we tell, he was sitting, I don't want to say his last name anymore.
G starts with a G though.
Sitting on the front row of Miss Ennis's history class. I was sitting in the middle, you were sitting somewhere over to the side. All of a sudden you hear a fart.
And it was so loud and so long that everyone in the class had a chance to stop what they were doing. Miss Ennis stopped talking and everybody turned and locked on him and echolocated it directly to the one seat, the one butthole that was emanating this fart. Tommy G.
It was like when an earthquake lasts so long that you can start to try to keep things from falling over. That's what was happening in the room.
It was like a game of Marco Polo, except the person just holds out polo until you touch them. It's like, it's just so easy to figure out where they're at.
Polo. And you know what? No one was laughing in the moment, but because it was it was unbelievable. But then as soon as it ended, it was like, the room didn't erupt out of reverence for, I mean, that would have been cruel, but we laughed about it a lot later.
Well, but Miss Ennis actually addressed him after he did it.
Good gosh.
She said something like, well, Tommy. Like, cause she knew too.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta say something.
I felt bad. You gotta have a back pocket line for that because this is a serious thing. How brutal kids can be. You gotta have a back pocket line, like while that fart's coming out and you're like, oh no, they're gonna echolocate, they're gonna know it's me.
Yeah.
You gotta stand up and bow. You can't let your face get red. You gotta stand up, you gotta bow, you gotta own it, and people will be telling that story forever. Kids are mean, ruthless.
So do you fart, how do farts go over in your house now?
Well.
They get a laugh?
I feel like, again, not to continue the sexist commentary, but I've got two boys, and at least in my experience, they tend to be a little bit more fart friendly. And so there's just there's a shaking of the head of my wife. She's not uptight about it at all. There's no like, we didn't have like a no fart policy. There are many relationships where there's a no fart policy, but we don't have that in our relationship. But pretty much any fart in any context gets a laugh, and there's no like, oh, come on, Dad situation. So thus far, that's the experience. But I also, I based on what you're telling me, I don't feel like I'm doing it as much as you.
Or that yours aren't as potent and stinky as mine are.
I have noticed that you do often smell like something has died inside of you. I will say that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I'll take that note.
I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the cause of it is. You might need to see a doctor. But I gotta say, I do have I can have significant volume, and I can have significant force, and I can have significant frequency, but I don't often have significant stink unless I'm sick.
I envy you, man. I don't know what it is. Like, I stopped drinking regular milk.
No, you
drinking the almond milk.
Yeah. Well, and the oat milk.
Yep, and the oat milk. I think that helped.
You think? Yeah, because dairy does contribute to it.
So you don't have an issue with the under the bedspread, where you like?
I mean, I'm not saying I haven't ever Dutch ovened my wife. Yeah, I have.
I try to seal it down. I put my elbows on top of the covers and like hold
seal
it
down and then flap your foot so it goes out the bottom.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I see the plan.
That doesn't work too well.
But I think
it'll seep out.
I think we've established that we personally find farts funny in real life, and also in media that is depicting real life. So, but to get back to what you were talking about a second ago, which is the scripted fart joke.
Yeah. Bathroom
humor. Because I'm gonna widen out a little bit into bathroom humor in Junior, in general.
And don't call me Junior. And Junior, let me tell you this.
I think, so just a little bit about our philosophy of humor in the way that we've approached our comedy. So very early on, we kind of made a conscious decision to not go into certain places with our comedy, right? You may have noticed that we don't really do political jokes. We don't really do religious jokes. We don't really get into controversial things as a policy. I mean, every once in a while we may hint at something or break the seal on something.
There's no intentionally shocking humor.
Right.
Like the shock jock stuff.
And we're also not cynical, like our humor is not cynical. I mean, I might get a little cynical at times, but in general, we don't have a cynical point of view when it comes to our comedy. And then also, we don't get overtly sexual. Obviously, if you watch the show, you know there's a lot of innuendo that happens naturally that we kind of embrace and have embraced even more as the years have gone by. But it's not overtly sexual. It's not overtly blue. It's not R-rated. And so, when you sort of box yourself in, you then have to think to yourself, well, what am I going to do? What lines am I going to cross? And so you naturally end up, because humor is about crossing lines, first of all. a big part of it is about defying norms and crossing lines. So you're going to offend someone.
Once you build a box like you've described for us,
it's got to fart its way out from one corner. Yeah.
If you squeeze the box, it's
like an accordion. Yeah, the box that we put ourselves in, a little, nod to Weird Al is like
out the comedy.
And so the comedy often comes out in the form of bathroom humor. So not necessarily fart jokes, but there are, we get into bathroom humor and some people are like, that's not my thing. I wonder sometimes when people are like, I'm not into bathroom humor, I'm not into blue stuff, I'm not into sexual humor, I'm not into religious humor, I'm not into political humor. I begin to wonder, well, what makes you laugh? I don't know. Where else do you go?
I mean, we do have other stuff in our.
Yeah. No, I don't necessarily. There's some people who are like, I don't like bathroom humor. I'm grossed out by it, and I never find it funny. That's their prerogative. I'm just trying. I would want to talk to that person and be like, okay, well, what is the funniest thing for you?
Mm-hmm.
And is it something that doesn't cross a line? Because that doesn't compute for me. But we've tried.
I would ask that person, if you're watching Jeopardy, I'm not assuming they watch Jeopardy just because they don't have a sense of humor.
Right.
But let's say you pass by a television, Jeopardy's on, you're not even intending to watch it. Alex Trebek's asking, he doesn't ask a question because
he gives the answer.
He gives the answers, man.
Yeah. You got to get that right or else you get it wrong.
He's in the middle of an answer and he farts.
Yeah.
Burk.
Would you find that funny?
Would you find that funny?
I think most people would.
That would be like top 10. Like if I told you that was on YouTube and that I found it hilarious and honest, you'd search it, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm searching it right now. Because if it's happened, I want to know.
Can you Google Alex Trebek fart, see what comes up? Because
well, okay.
I feel like I might be onto something, like my future.
Is it I'm sure it's one of those. You remember the who's the preacher?
It's probably somebody adding it to like
who's that preacher that the televangelist who like
yes, and they
makes like the he makes like the faces.
And she proved God. God.
And then they just put a bunch of fart noises every time he made it.
Tillman, Robert.
What's his name? Farting preacher. If you Google farting preacher, it'll probably be the first thing that comes up. But it's
now that's an edit joke, of course. He's not really farting, but his face looks so contorted that it's timed so well that it's
so great.
It's splendid.
But let's talk about the times when it hasn't worked for us, because the prime example of this, that's him. What is his name?
Robert Tilton.
Robert Tilton.
Tilton. When it hasn't worked for us is when we leaned into it so heavily on this thing that we did called first date farts. I'd really like to.
Did you just fart?
No, it was a notification. That was a while back. It was when it was within the context of a GMM, but it was like a short, like 2-minute sketch where we're in the car. You're playing a woman on a date with me.
And you're covering up the fact that you're farting.
By saying that it's my
ringtone.
My ringtones and my text messages and stuff. And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that that idea came from a conversation that Cassie was having with Stevie. That's my memory.
That sounds right.
Is that Cassie has an idea that Stevie relayed to us, and then we turned it into that sketch. And it's, again, I think that—
Did you rewatch it?
I did.
It doesn't work?
It was, I don't know. I don't like leaning into it that much because that's when I believe that you are getting into a place where the surprise is taken out of it.
Yeah.
That's my best assessment of that, is that when you get that joke and then you just run it into the ground and that's the whole sketch, the pattern disruption element is gone because the pattern becomes, the fart becomes the pattern. And at that point, I'm not, that's why if you watch a movie that relies too much on it and it becomes the pattern itself, it's not sacred anymore. There's nothing unexpected about it.
Keep the fart sacred. It can be cheapened, but we can reclaim that.
Do you remember Sundance 2 years ago when Swiss Army Man premiered?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
At Sundance, and we were trying to figure out what we were gonna go watch. We were trying to figure out what things we were gonna go.
And
stream.
you started. And the way Sundance works is you're in line with people, you're talking to people, so you end up asking them what they've seen, and there'll literally be a buzz around movies, chatter around movies that you have to see.
And all the chatter about Swiss Army Man, at least from the people that we met, was we heard it's not good and it's really gross, and there's like this scene at the beginning where like there's a dead body that's farting and it's really, really gross, and it's like was weird and you shouldn't see it. Like that was like the sentiment from multiple people, and I was like, what? This sounds stupid. I was like,
we're like, is Alex Trebek in it?
And then we didn't end up seeing it at Sundance, and then we get back home, and of course, like at that point I see, well, months pass, however long it took from Sundance to the film actually coming out in theaters, which could have been a year. I don't even know how long it was. I see the trailer for this thing and I'm like, this looks like an incredible movie. This looks like I have to see this. This looks like right down my alley.
Or right up it.
And then we went to see it and saw that whole scene where the dead body is being propelled by farts, like a boat, like a freaking jet ski. And we loved it.
But it was taking a fart joke to an absolute extreme, like an appalling, surreal extreme that a place that had never gone before.
It was completely innovative, and so it wasn't a pattern.
It was rooted in science too. You know, you have a dead, bloated body.
Propulsion.
Which, by the way, it wasn't a gruesome dead body. It was Daniel Radcliffe who then was the star of the movie playing a dead guy. It wasn't morbid. It was endearingly comedic.
I absolutely loved it.
It was magical.
And it was one big fart joke that in my mind worked. But I think it's an illustration of if you're gonna do a fart joke and it's in something scripted at this point, you've got to do it in a way that it hasn't been done before. You can't just come out with Nutty Professor 5 and expect people to still care about it. I mean, right. I didn't see Dumb and Dumberer. Most people hated it. And I think one of the reasons that people, and I'm talking in ignorance because I didn't see it, is that they kind of went back to the same well in a lot of ways. And
was there a lot of farts in the well?
I think they should have never remade the movie because it's one of those things that you can't win. It's a lose-lose situation when you want to remake a movie like that. Because they go back, there's so much gross humor that, okay, I'm gonna go back to the exact same well 20 years later. Is it still gonna work? No, it's not gonna work. But if they were to suddenly do it differently, everybody would criticize them for doing it differently. Why are you guys trying to get intellectual with your fart jokes? It wouldn't work. So just don't make the movie. Just let the movie, the original movie, stand on its own. So in other words, if you're gonna bring farts into comedy purposefully, now we've done it accidentally. We both independently farted accidentally on GMM and it made it into the cut both times.
Oh. Did you actually fart?
I think I did.
I actually heard you fart.
I think I just smelled it.
Get it today, cashbareboys.com. Did you actually just fart?
Yeah, it came out, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because it was, that really worked. That was funny.
But if you're gonna do it on purpose, you're gonna write a fart into something, you better do it right.
Yeah, it's like threading a needle. If that needle,
I don't like to think about needles.
The eye of the needle were your sphincter and the fart joke was I don't know, the enema. Wow. Did I lose the analogy? Does it matter?
A little bit, but I think we all know what you mean. So our position on are farts actually funny seems to be, yes, they are intrinsically funny for all the reasons that we covered, but it is the context of the fart that determines whether or not it wears its welcome out.
Now, I have a decision to make at this point.
Okay.
Because I've worked one up.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, if I just, of course I'm probably, by talking about it, I'm probably spoiled it. I didn't work it up. I find myself in a position where I could fart. I mean, so I think I've already made my choice because I think the alternative would have been don't say anything, Link, play it cool. And then at the very end, as we're ending this episode, I could just, just punctuate my last sentence with a fart and get your honest reaction.
Okay.
But I guess it's too late for that now that I've.
I mean, I don't know. It depends on where you work it in.
Well, I'm not working it in right here because you expect it.
I can't be looking at you when it happens. It needs to be able to turn my head like Tommy G, and I need to be able to locate you and where it came from.
I'm not gonna do it, but
Well, Leslie Nielsen of Naked Gun fame, and a lot of other things before that, who died in 2010, had written as his epitaph.
epitaph.
Epitaph?
I don't know. Gravestone engraving.
Let her rip, because he was so. The fart joke was his thing, and he had like a fart machine that he had with him at all times. And there's actually a clip that we were watching earlier that I don't know if it was a real fart or if it was the fart machine, but he's like being interviewed on Australian TV, and he just
let it rip.
He just lets it rip in the middle. He's
It was
talking
subtle.
about comedy, and he pauses at a certain time, and just this fart noise comes, and the people don't know how to interact. He moves right along. He was a genius at doing that.
Because you didn't know.
You're getting into some.
You didn't know if it was gonna.
Epitaph.
Yeah, I know.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You didn't know how they were gonna respond, so he wasn't making a joke. He was pulling a prank on them, and the joke would be how they respond.
Right. And so.
But he died like he lived. He let it rip.
Yeah. If you've got a fart.
I don't know how he died. I think
he died of pneumonia.
Oh.
Which is like not funny at all.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? It's like the least funny way to die. I don't know. Maybe it was a funny pneumonia.
I'm sure he had a sense of humor in it. Wow.
What I'm ultimately saying is, if you start talking about potentially laying a fart into your conversation, you're standing on the shoulders of giants.
Which is a perfect place to let it rip, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm totally fine with just waiting it out and seeing what happens.
What do you mean waiting it out? If I'm gonna fart right now?
Yeah, waiting for like a gopher to come out of a hole.
Oh. I'm not gonna do it. I think I'm done with the whole thing. I'm moving on. No more fart humor for me, man.
I think you've made the right choice.
It's not funny. Wow, you're still here listening. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Let's continue this conversation online.
Yeah, can we talk more about farts on Twitter?
Because
#earbiscuits.
I'm sure that many of you have this is a polarizing issue. Some of you made a decision to quit listening a while ago, and why I'm even talking to you. Those of you who are still listening probably either just gave us the benefit of the doubt, or you actually think farts are funny too. Let's talk about it and come to a collective conclusion. Are we right? Are we wrong? Let us. Oh gosh.
There it was. 2 of them. Wasn't.
Oh.
You have one too?
Yeah. The first time it was bigger, but you laughed in the middle of it. Oh gosh. See, it's not funny anymore.
It's over.
It's ridiculous.
We're coming for you, Eddie Murphy.